Let's hit the campaign trail and the big infrastructure debate, which is just starting. Former President John Dramani Mahama, who is flag bearer of the opposition NDC, has thrown a challenge to President Akufo-Addo to a debate on the record of their government, especially infrastructure. It comes after Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's data-driven presentation to argue that the Akufo-Addo government has undertaken infrastructure projects in excess of 17,000. According to him, this is better than what was provided by the opposition NDC in its 8-year tenure. But addressing residents of the Ketu South constituency yesterday as part of his 4-day tour of the Volta region, the former president said a debate will bring a conclusion to the matter.
Easy to settle the issue of infrastructure. After all, the president said this election is going to be an election of track records. Comparing his track record to my track record, we can settle it easily. Let's have a debate between two of us, the two presidents. Let Nana Akufo-Addo come and sit down. Let me sit down, and let's debate our records.
Let's get a quick response to this. Samir Oku is national organizer of the New Patriotic Party. He's joined us via Zoom. Mr. Oku, thanks for your response to former President Mahama's challenge to your presidential candidate.
Well, let me say a very good afternoon to your cherished viewers. We want to make one thing clear. The NPP will fight these elections on our own terms. The NPP is not going to fight these elections on the terms of Mr. John Dramani Mahama and that of the NDC. And I like your introduction to this whole conversation. They said this is following Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's data-driven presentation. So meaning that you do acknowledge that Dr. Bawumia did make some solid presentation, data-driven. These are not projects that you can just imagine. These are projects that you can feel, you can see, they are tangible. You don't need a soothsayer to tell you something is happening around the Pokwasi interchange area. You don't need someone to tell you that there's something happening around the Tema motorway. The interchange. You also don't need someone to tell you when you use the Abosokai area of the Bechebelamte interchange. You don't need someone to tell you about what is happening of the Tema Pakadan railway line. You see it, you walk through it, you know that there's something happening. You also do not need someone to just lie to you or try to play propaganda. When we say that if you go to Tamale today, they're having their first interchange in Northern Ghana under the NPP's administration, the Sino-Hydro project, where we've cut off, work is ongoing, and at a greater percentage. Again, if you also want to go to industrialization, I don't need someone to lie to me that if I go to Goma today and I'm looking for Casa de Ropa under the 1B1F initiative, it doesn't exist. I don't need someone to convince me that if I go to Bolga today and I'm using the Bolga Bokuro, work is ongoing and almost completed. If I use the Eastern Corridor Road, I have something to tell myself that this government is working.
Right.
To use the Bimbala Salaga Road. So I'm not too sure what Mr. Mahama wants us to do on this one. But as I said, we have our own campaign strategies and we have our own campaign plans. The NPP will go according to our own strategy. If the need arises and we feel that it's necessary, then we can give it a thought.
Now, Mr. Oku, you are so confident about your government's performance in its administration. Would it not then be a walk in the park for you to debate the former president and show Ghanaians in full view that you have done a better job?
Well, I'm sure the Ghanaian people also can feel and they can see that indeed the NPP is also working, and we've done a fantastic job. And if you take under the One Village, One Dam initiative, in excess of over 400 dams, but with over 370 or so plus completed and working. So I don't need a debate to tell you that these are tangible things, these are things that are happening across the country. If Mr. Mahama wants a debate, well, from where I sit today, I don't think the NPP has given it a thought yet.
Now, the record that you have put forward has been questioned heavily. I'm looking at various publications online which raised several questions about the infrastructure development.
Question by who, sir?
I will draw your attention first of all to what Felix Kwakye-Ofosu said when he was speaking on the Super Morning Show on Joy FM this morning, counting more than 2,300 projects in the education sector alone in the 4 years of President Mahama as president. He places this by what the vice president presented and says that their record is much better than yours, which is what I'm sure is informing their confidence in calling for this debate, Mr. Uku.
I'm not too sure if Felix Kwakye-Ofosu is one of Mr. Mahama's advisors. But if indeed he's one of Mr. Mahama's advisors, then I think Mr. Mahama will have to really take a critical look at some of the people around him. If you take the educational sector, as I speak to you today, the New Patriotic Party administration, we have completed around 1,253 of these projects. If you take the ongoing projects, we're talking about 1,446. So bringing a total to 2,699. If Kwakye-Ofosu is telling me that all these initiatives that the NPP has spoken about, all these projects are projects that doesn't exist, I don't know what then he's trying to say. Because under the NBC, we didn't have a double track. We implemented free SHS. Free SHS has come with its own attendant projects and infrastructure. Under the educational sector, if you take Mahama's administration, they commissioned around 48 e-blocks, but in actual fact, only about 27 or 29 were completed. But they did commission projects that were not even completed. They have taken their pain to complete and also started new ones and about completing.
I'm curious, when you say incomplete, what do you mean? I was at the commissioning of one of these projects in the Western region. At that time, I was doing my work there as a journalist, and we saw that the school was ready to be used. Which schools were commissioned, which were not completed?
When I say some of them were incomplete or had not been completed, if you're talking about 48 projects, and maybe, I don't know the one that you visited.
Bamianko in the Western region.
That one was completed, but several of them had not been completed. But then as part of the propaganda, they did commission it and said it was completed. This same Felix Kwakye-Ofosu took a picture from a Chinese website, splashed it on his social media page and told us that that was the Afam Plains bridge that was being built, and that he couldn't wait for it to be commissioned. Years down the line, not a single stone was put there. So I am hesitant to enter into the arena with Felix Kwakye-Ofosu when it comes to him properly giving us examples of projects that they did. And so I wouldn't even get into that arena at all.
I just want to raise this quick final point about value for money, because that was a big part of Mr. Bawumia's presentation yesterday, on Tuesday, pardon me. Now, Dr. Bawumia, mentioned that 4 interchange projects amounts to 289 million. 1 interchange project amounts to 264 million. Some would say, Mr. Uku, that no 2 interchanges are the same. Indeed, data has come to show that the second interchange is one of the largest in the country, if not the largest in the country as we speak. And the scope of work there could be different from these 4 interchanges, which would account for the larger costs.
Well, I think Dr. Bawumia was clear in this presentation when it came to figures. You are now talking about the engineering aspect and the component. That's another discussion for us to have. But then I take the Pokwasi interchange, which is a 4th-tier, and it's going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in West Africa. Then I am likely to say that obviously, for us, we got it at a reduced cost, and for us, we believe that was value for money.
Now, the size above ground, and I understand that you may not want to enter the details, the technical details, but the size above ground, Mr. Uku, may differ from what is below. I mean, we both know that if you are building a house, sometimes the most expensive part is the foundation. And the same could be said about a road, no?
Well, but if the same could be said about the road, what the MPP is saying, that with the little that we got from our Ghanaian people through taxes, we are counting to the people from loans we've taken, looking at the figures, this is what we've been able to do for the Ghanaian people. The NDC's argument is that based on what they got, they thought they could have gotten it at a higher price. So that is a different matter. If we are doing the comparative analysis, we believe that we've been able to build these 4 interchanges at this amount. The NDC is saying, okay, they had some structural problems, so they were able to build just 1 at this amount. That doesn't mean that the MPP's position of, for us, building 4 interchanges at this particular amount was inaccurate.
Yeah, interesting. I have some documents that was shared yesterday, and I'll crave your indulgence on this matter because I'm sure you would appreciate the fact, Mr. Oku, that the value for money question is a big part of the conversation that was had. And former Roads Minister Inus Afuseni shared this, that the second phase of the Ebichebi-Lamte interchange had a budget of 63 million, but the MPP is doing it for 100 million. And he shared a statement caption, a document caption, motion for the adoption and approval of a loan or for a commercial contract. Basically, the motion for the approval of the contract in Parliament. That's what Inus Afuseni shared with us on PM Express last night.
So, this even defeats the NDC's position that they are trying to espouse. Even though I reject Inus Afuseni's assertion, the NDC, in one hand, is telling us that no 2 interchanges are the same. When we made the point that we got the Pokwasi, the Tema, the Obechebi-Lamte, and that of the Tamale interchanges at a reduced value for money amount. Now, the NDC say, oh, no 2 interchanges are the same. At the same time, they are telling us that the Obechebi-Lamte, we have increased the cost of building the Obechebi interchange. So are they now saying that now the interchanges are the same? Is that what they are saying? So I struggle to even understand their position on these matters. What Dr. Bawumia sought to portray, or what he sought to do, was to put the figures, the facts, and the data on the table. For us to do some serious analysis of what is on the table, how prudent government has used our taxes, and how well this government has managed the public purse. And this is a debate, we're not going to run away from it. We have set the tone for a serious infrastructural debate, for us to have a conversation, for us to have issue-based campaign, and how, in the mind of the NPP, that is how this campaign should go in 2020. But because the NDC's earlier position was that we haven't undertaken any major infrastructural project, and they've been consistent in this propaganda. Then we put out facts that vindicates our position, that we've embarked on several infrastructural projects, from health to education, to energy, to security, to every sector of our national life.
But just to be clear, even though you have opened the way for an infrastructure debate, your position as expressed here is that you will not respond to former President Mahama's call for a debate between Mr. Akufo-Addo and himself on this infrastructure matter.
Let me be clear on it, Daniel. What I'm saying is that the NPP will fight these elections on our own terms. As I speak to you now, the party hasn't given it a thought for us to have any debate with Mr. Mahama. We are going according to our campaign strategy. We are going according to our own terms on how we want to prosecute this campaign. And I don't think that we've given it a serious thought about a debate with Mr. Mahama. But yes, he also has an opportunity to put forward his data, because he did indicate that Bawumia did put forward data-driven presentation. We expect Mr. Mahama or his running mate to put forward another data-driven presentation to counter what Dr. Bawumia did. Let's set that ground rules first, and then we can move to the next stage.
So a quick comment that my production just drew my attention to on our Facebook wall, Mr. Oku. The question really is that as part of the 17,000 projects that Dr. Bawumia put out on Tuesday, we had projects like urinals, like public toilets and what have you. In your view, when the Ghanaian hears the word infrastructure and infrastructure development, would you say that they would be thinking of projects like urinals and public toilets and what have you?
If you go to a community, in that community, what they lack most in that community is a toilet facility. Are you going to build a library, or you are going to build a toilet facility? I mean, let's be clear on these matters. We've done needs assessment of the various communities in Ghana. There are places you will go, their biggest need is a market. You cannot tell that community that because what you need is a market, I think that what you will need will be a dam. It just doesn't work. And so the projects we've embarked upon from community to community, Ghana is not only Accra, and that is the mistake that we keep making. You go somewhere, what the person needs will tell you that, well, we need a dugout. You go somewhere, they will tell you we need a school block. You go somewhere, you need to fix their roads. And all these are infrastructural projects that as a government, those ones you consider little, those ones that are considered big, merged and put together, it forms the bigger framework of what we want to do nationwide.
What would you say to that NDC member of parliament who would say that I constructed 3 public toilets in my constituency. By that measure, I should be president. If I remember the word mundane being used. These projects are mundane.
Which NDC member of parliament?
Enusa Husseini, speaking on PM Express last night with Evans.
He's a very good friend, but he's not contesting again. So he can still pick the nomination forms when the party opens nominations again. In 2024, maybe he can help secure a win for the NDC.
So these projects are not mundane at all?
Not at all. That's what I'm saying. That if you get to a community and Daniel, what they need, according to the chiefs, the people, the residents in the community, if they tell you what they need is a toilet facility and a market, and you are saying no, instead I want to build a fountain for them, there is a disconnect. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's about the needs of the people. It's not about what you think. It's about what they need. And if you check the constitutional provisions of our country, the basic necessities of life to support the human being and the growth of the person as a Ghanaian.
Samuel Oku, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
He's national organizer for the New Patriotic Party.